Okay, great. So, hi, everyone. Hello. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Jessica Levac. I'm C4's Executive Director. And today we're looking at a window into the ether, exploring Ethereum transactions with Etherscan. So we'll be talking about the fundamentals of blockchain explorers and in particular, how Etherscan works. So let's start with intros and with our committee, and then we'll get into our very special guest from Etherscan. Cheyenne, do you want to start?
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. Hi, everyone. I'm Cheyenne Scandary, and recently I joined a new company called Puffer Finance. I'm working on restaking and eigenlayer, which we're going to have a session talking about it. But I've been part of the CP for 4 years now. Happy to be here and excited to talk about 5 years. Excited
Five
to
years in
talk
August.
about
Yeah,
Etherscan.
crazy.
Hi, I'm Dustin. I'm a C4's education manager and also run a Ethereum 6.5, which is a Ethereum community in Singapore. We're neighbors with Etherscan. Etherscan's from Malaysia, of course.
Hey everyone, so TY here from Etherscan. I'm currently a content writer. My day job is really just helping Etherscan users understand the very technical aspects of the Ethereum blockchain in a very, very high level view. So most of the stuff can be found in our knowledge base and on our Twitter.
Awesome. And I'll link to that in the YouTube and Twitter comments. So why don't we get started? Well, first of all, TY, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to learn more about Etherscan and have the audience be able to understand better how they can use it to track transactions, etc. But before we get into Etherscan specifically, let's just explain how blockchain explorers work from a high level. So Cheyenne, do you want to give us a quick rundown before we get into some of the more nitty-gritty?
Yeah, for sure. So I just want to like zoom out a bit and like hopefully catch up with like everything that our audience have been with us in the last 4 or 5 years. So like, what is blockchain? Like you can go through like when you send a transaction for any users that have used blockchain. So when you send a transaction, this transaction goes to a node. This node, using a Whisper protocol or some other propagation mechanism, sends this transaction to other nodes. They work either proof of work or proof of stake. They work together to create this new block that includes that transaction. And that block is linked to the previous block. So now these are just data. They're just random data there. And we need a way, like a human readable way to like understand what is in there. Not necessarily understand, just to be able to like check and look at them. So that's where these block explorers come in, as like you can explore blocks and what is inside them. And so in Bitcoin back in the day, we had like blockchain.info, we had like some other websites that came after. And I remember blockchain.info was one of the first ones, and everyone was like, "Oh, did you look at the blockchain?" So like there was like a naming also. But I really like the Block Explorer, much better name for it. And basically, what it is like a UI on top of this blockchain to be able to like look at it. There's a lot of like technicality in there that like you cannot really look at the blockchain database directly. You need indexers or some other ways that we don't really want to get into that here. We just want to say like what that is and what is it good for. So like basically it's a way to be able to click around blockchain data, look what's happening, see who's sending money to whom and what are the data. And we've seen in the last few years that websites like Etherscan have come a long way, that like from just showing a transaction to decoding the transaction, what is happening, what are the tokens going on, NFTs around them, and like this is ongoing progress that we're seeing. So that's like the basics of like what is a block explorer. If anyone wants to add more to it.
I think what's really useful as well is that, we talk about how the visibility of the blockchain means that, everyone has access to it. So even for like, example, XXBT, Zach XBT and Taylor Monahan, whenever there are any like, big exploits in the space, they use Etherscan to look at the transactions, to look at transaction flows, to see where funds are going. And for example, if there are wallets that maybe are known to be used by hackers that have malicious intent, one of the things that you can do is you can also tag those wallets as malicious actors, so that if you suddenly go on the blockchain and you look at a wallet that maybe belongs to a hacker, it will, over time, it will get tagged with like, this is a wallet that was used in this particular exploit. So that's, another example of like, you have the blockchain data, but then you also have a layer of data that goes on top of that, which is metadata of the blockchain data that adds more context to how it relates to everything else in the space.
TY, anything you want to add to this part of it?
Actually, it's pretty much covered by both Cheyenne and Dustin, sorry. So basically at Etherscan, what we are trying to do is we are trying to provide equitable access to human readable blockchain data, right? So most of the information that you can find on the Block Explorer, Etherscan, is free, that you don't have to sign up for an account, you don't have to log in to access most of the Ethereum data on Etherscan.
I think one of the big takeaways is the phrase human readable content. So people like me that are not extremely technical, I'm not a coder, I can't read Solidity, I can go on to Etherscan and very clearly be able to track my transactions, others' transactions. And so it's kind of this public good, a gift to everybody who wants to or is using Ethereum, is transferring Ether or NFTs, whatever it is, to be able to go on and easily see what's happening on the chain without actually looking into the blockchain. Yeah, okay. Well, I feel like we've got a good idea of what a blockchain is in general. And we talked a little bit about how it's used for transactions, but it's also used to share and show different types of information. So why don't we get into what other things we can access and see on a blockchain explorer, and maybe we'll go now into Etherscan specifically. And so Etherscan is for Ethereum. So if you're trying to, and this is the CEP committee, but if you're trying to look up something for Bitcoin, you would not go to Etherscan. Etherscan is specifically for the Ethereum network. So why don't we get into some of the things we can see, the common things Etherscan's used for. TY, do you want to get into that a little bit? I don't know if you or Dustin is going to do screen sharing. Feel free to do that now or whenever it makes sense.
Right, I can do it. Let me do a screen share. Okay, so right here, it's visible, right?
Yep,
Okay,
we can see.
so
Great.
right here, it's the homepage of Etherscan. So how do you, if you are the first time visiting Etherscan, you can actually just Google it, Etherscan, and pick first option that shows up. So right here, you can actually see at the homepage, there is a list of latest blocks and a list of transactions, right? So let's say you look at one of the transaction, we can actually see that it has a transaction hash and the status is actually success. That means this transaction has been successfully processed. And in here, we will have the transaction action saying that it is actually a transfer of 0.001 Ether to this wallet address, right? And the transaction fee for this address actually costs $2.32 at the current gas price of 31 Gwei. Yeah. And after this transaction, we can actually have a look at the state, or what we can say, the outcome of this transaction. So we can see that this address that have received the Ether actually have an increase in 0.001 Ether, and the address that have sent, they are actually spent 0.001 plus the transaction fees, and the producer of this transaction, the processor, I would say, have earned 0.000021 Ether. So that is how you can actually track your transaction after you have signed them.
You know, and I'm glad that you showed the part, TY, about the gas fees in there, because I know that that's something else we can also check on Etherscan. It's interesting to see what gas was paid and the transactions, and kind of looking back. One of the ways that I think the first time I ever used a Block Explorer was because I'd made a transaction and was nervous if it had gone through or not. And so that's kind of like my first experience with it, double checking to see if what I sent is being shown on a blockchain explorer. If it's up on Etherscan, then I feel more comfortable that what I just did is accurate.
Yep. So in fact, I think most of us that is new to Ethereum would have at one point have a MetaMask wallet. Is it not showing?
It did. It popped up.
Yep, I can
Oh,
see
it did. Right. Okay, cool. Let me do it again. Okay, so at one point we might all have a MetaMask wallet. So when we let's say when we send a transaction via MetaMask wallet, then they will actually show a transaction hash right here, right? So you can actually copy and paste. You can copy the transaction hash and go into the search bar, right? So like let's say we copy this transaction hash and we put it into the search bar. You can actually search for that for the transaction that you have actually sent yourself. And sometimes if let's say the gas fee that you are actually supplying for the transaction is quite low, then it will probably stay a while in this pending transaction pool until it is successfully processed.
Do you mind if I ask a quick question? So, like,
Mhm.
your view of the chain is basically Etherscan running their own nodes for it. Like, what is that setup like? If you can broadly talk about what that's like, how many nodes are you guys running? Do you have failovers? What clients do you use and stuff like that?
That one, I think we are actually using some Geth and some other clients that I'm not really familiar with, but I think we mainly use clients that are actually reliable. Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, I think what you were pointing at, Dustin, is that Etherscan and other blockchain explorers are centralized. So we're trusting Etherscan to have the correct information. It has proven over many years that the information is correct. So it's a trusted, I think it's like the most used block explorer for Ethereum, if I'm accurate on that. And so we can feel confident.
I think to answer Jessica's question, I think because Ethereum blockchain data is actually very open and decentralized, that means anyone that's actually running their own client or node, they are able to retrieve this particular data, right? So that's the concept. So for this, Etherscan actually, we have built a small tool to allow us to validate this particular transaction across many, many different nodes that we can see out there. We can compare the particular transaction with QuickNode, Infura, ChainStack, Cloudflare, and others. Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
So, so I think this makes it easier to say that don't trust, verify, right? Because I think if you paste the same transaction hash onto, let's say, QuickNode, you will actually find the same data. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a way to double check the information that we're finding on Etherscan if we want to. And because many people have done this many, many times. That's why, and it's always been accurate. That's why Etherscan has become such a trusted explorer for sure. Okay, so we've looked a little bit into how to confirm transactions. You can see the hash and the to and from senders, the value, the gas fees. What other things are we able to check on Etherscan?
All right. So what other things aside from transactions? So let's say we have a MetaMask wallet. So we are going back there. Let's say if I copy my own address and I paste it into the search bar here, let's see what info that I can see from my address. Okay, so if I can see here, I can actually see there's nothing because this is a newly created address. I have not loaded any Ether into this wallet, and hence I have not done any transaction. So that's why it's 0. But if you have a wallet address, right, that you are frequently transacting with, let's pick this address, right? Then you can actually see that, okay, my first ever transaction that I have sent from this address is from 462 days ago. And the most recent transaction that I have sent from this address is actually 21 seconds ago. So I can know roughly how long I've been actively using this wallet address. Yeah. So apart from that, you're saying?
I just said that's really cool.
Yeah. So apart from that, you can actually have a view of your current Ether balance. Right now, this address have a balance of 4.5 Ether, and at the current Ether price, it's at a total of 16K US dollars. Then you can also see how many ERC20 tokens that you're currently holding. For some addresses, they will also hold like NFTs, like ENS, or NFTs that you've bought from OpenSea or Blur. And then you can look at your past transactions, the past token transfers over here. And if you are a block builder, so for your info, this address is actually owned by a block builder on Ethereum. So if you are a block builder, you are able to view the past blocks that you have built, meaning that you have helped in processing the transactions on Ethereum and you have arranged them into blocks, right? So like, let's say you are the one that have produced this block and this block, and how many transactions are there in that particular block, how much gas is being consumed in that block, and how much reward in Ether that you have received as a result of producing that block. Also, if we navigate to the Analytics tab, this is a very high-level overview of like at which point your Ether balance is the highest. For this address, it's on the 4th of March, right? They have over 100K US dollar of Ether. And then the total amount of transactions that you have done every day and the transaction fees that you have spent on a single day. Let's zoom in. Let's look at how much this address have spent in total for processing or sending their transactions. So they've spent over like 1 Ether on the 9th of April just by sending transaction itself. So yeah, so there's also this transaction heat map that actually shows how active is this address doing transactions on the blockchain. Like let's say the darker ones will show that this has more, which is over 2,000 transactions. And on this day, it is much lesser at 600 transactions. Yeah. So to recap,
do you mind if I ask a
right?
question? Sorry, do you mind if I interrupt to ask the question? I noticed
Yep.
that like at the top over there we have like rsync builder and then we have the ENS
Yes.
rsync like so the hashtag MEV builder, how does that how do you detect that it's an MEV builder? Is this something that is like automatically detected, or is this something that is manually tagged as like that this account is an MEV builder, for example?
Right. So regarding this, it's two ways. So one of the way is it's either it's publicly available information. Maybe it's something that we stumble upon in crypto Twitter, right? Or maybe someone will go to this area here and they will actually suggest for a name tag update or a label. So like let's say the community will send in suggestion for a name tag for this address, then we'll review for the authenticity or accuracy of that name tag. And if it all checks out, then we will add the label on it.
Ah, I see. Very interesting. So I guess this is also how the community can participate in labeling, like, this wallet was used for hack, and then they label it, and then you check that it's correct, and then,
Yes.
okay, this is used in the Lazarus hack, for example.
Yes, correct. So yeah, so likewise, if let's say if you are the owner of this address, you just have to, and let's say you want to remove the name tag, you just have to prove to us that you own this address and then provide some reasons on removing, then we'll happily remove it for you. And likewise, if you think that this address is involved in any phishing or scamming activity, then you can also report them to us.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That is
So to
cool.
recap,
Right.
sorry.
I was just going to say, I didn't realize that there was a reporting tool through Etherscan. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I mean it's a permissionless blockchain and there and many actors is on a blockchain, right? So we want to try our best to allow some avenue for users to help report this kind of stuff to us.
Yeah, and one thing I really like also and I personally use is the private labels that you can, when you sign in, you can have private labels. And with that, it's not a public information, but when you're browsing the blockchain, you can see those addresses that you have, like you tagged with the name. That helps with like if you have a cold storage, if you want to just stalk your friends and you have their addresses, you can just save them there. It's a really good tool to just like make your own version of the view. And yeah, while I'm talking about that, like there is also the other feature that I think TY can also explain is the watcher. You can add addresses and watch them for like transactions, which is like pretty cool as well.
Yes. Yes. I think let me find a smaller address if I could. Okay, this should be a smaller address. So for example, this is my wallet. And let's say I have this, my friend just transferred me, let's say my friend's name is John, right? So let's say my friend John just transferred me an amount of 0.018, then I can actually quickly go to this address and I'll add a private name tag. Yeah, they'll require me to log in, but I can just add a private name tag saying that, okay, this address actually belongs to John. And it'll be so much easier for me to later track him down if, let's say, suddenly he becomes rich, right? Maybe he bought the right coin, he earned a bunch of money, then I can see, hey, I saw that you have become rich. So when are you gonna treat me to a fancy dinner, right? Yeah. And then you can also go next level with the stalking. You can also, okay. You can also go to add this address to watch list, which will actually send an email notification to you that says that, okay, this address has, at this time, has made a transaction, right? So just so you know. Yeah. And then maybe you want to copy what he's doing, whatever, it's up to you.
Yeah, I've heard some people track people they think are good investors or are making
Mhm.
good, transfers. And so they watch what they're doing and get those notifications to then mimic it, which makes it, I suppose, easier to be able to see what people are doing if you are able to track it, get an email notification or whatever it is. So it's a useful tool for those who are focusing on the investment side of things as well. Or like you said, if you want to stalk your friends to try to get them to take you out to dinner. I mean,
Yeah, that could definitely work.
I think it's also a useful reminder that if you give someone your public address, they also can see all your transactions. So it's one of those things where just be aware that if anyone has your public address, they can see all your transactions. There may be good reason for you to have multiple addresses sometimes, where you have addresses that you use to privately receive funds, and then you may have public addresses where it's for smaller amounts so that not everyone knows everything that you have.
Yes. Also, there's this really cool feature just released last year, end of last year, is this multi-chain portfolio thing. So if you go to this multi-chain portfolio, you can actually see what other assets that this address own across multiple chains that is currently supported by Etherscan, right? So let's say right now this address has assets across 6 different chains, including Ethereum. Then you can go to each individual one to, do some further stalking, if you may. Yep. And you can actually go to the individual Explorer itself to view this address on the Explorer. They all share the same UI and UX, so that will be convenient.
Yeah, I think it was a good stalking 101. We can go. One thing that I'm also interested to show. Yeah, we had this before on some other calls that. So let's say a user goes to the website, they need to interact with this app, and they need to send a transaction to a smart contract. I want to show this flow as how would you use Etherscan to look at that smart contract and be able to read its code.
Right.
Yeah, and possibly even look at the transaction you send and look what data was sent. So probably in the latest transaction, there should be some smart contracts we can look into, or even a token in a smart contract. I think that should be also good enough.
Yeah. So I think we can do a quite simple contract by looking at a simple USDT token contract. So let's say we go to this contract page over here. You will say that this address is a contract. So there's a bunch of labels over here. We can see that the usual stuff like if balance and token holdings. Wow, that's actually a lot of tokens. Okay. And then who created this token contract, right? Apparently it's by Bitfinex deployer 5 at this particular transaction. So this contract is created 2,326 days ago, right? And if you want to look at the transactions in this contract, you can feel free to do so. Let's maybe look at this one example. So currently I'm using this also relatively new feature that is called Advanced Filter. It has much more filtering capabilities that I actually use it on a daily basis. So let's open up this transaction. Right, so this transaction, just for context, if you're a bit lost, so this transaction actually involved this token contract, which involves USDT, right? So you can see that it's actually transferring 61,000 USDT to Bitfinex hot wallet by this address. Okay. So this is This is a summary of transfers. So this address send this much Ether, and this address receive this much Ether. So we can actually go back to the token tracker page to view some more info about the max total supply. Okay, just take, I think you can just take note of like the figures here a little bit. Later on, I can actually show you that this data is actually plucked from the token contract itself. So currently the max total supply on Ethereum is 50 billion. Holders is around, it's more than 5 million. Total transfers is more than 200 million. So we look at the holders list. Right now, the top holder is Binance, which is holding over 9% of total supply of USDT. Okay. Then on the contract page, like I said just now, so at the contract page, you can actually view the source code for this contract. So if you want to zoom in, if you know how to read code, then this is good for you, right? But if you do not, don't worry. We also have a very simple UI for you to easily read and write contract, which is over here. So for example, right? So all these functions are actually in the code, in the contract code itself, right? And we provide a very simple UI for you to actually look and interact with a contract. So for example, you want to see, let's see, total supply. So right now, the updated total supply is 50 billion as checks out in this part over here. And then let's say, okay, let me get another wallet. Maybe this one. Okay, and if I want to check, let's say this address, right? How much USDT does this address currently own? So I can query it. It actually owns none. Okay, let me check this. Right. And it's they probably own 0.5 USDT because USDT has 6 decimals. Is it right? Let's check it again in our UI. So we can search for the address here. Then it will show us that yes, the balance is 0.5 USDT. So all this is actually verifiable on chain. Like you can read the contract and it returns the same value. So this is read contract, right? Read contract, that means you can read whatever data that is currently on Ethereum. But if you want to interact with this contract itself, let's say you want to send USDT, you can actually go to write contract tab. Okay, first we have to connect to our wallet. Let's use MetaMask. So now it says it's connected. Okay, let's say I want to transfer. I want to transfer to my best friend John, right? How much? Maybe 50 USDT. So 50, sorry. And then we will add 6 more decimals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we hit on write. So what this will do is it will open up your MetaMask, your wallet, and it will show you that, okay, you are actually sending 50 USDT. And yeah, and because I don't have any Ether in it, so I can't confirm this transaction. But if you have it, then you can actually send the transaction and confirm it by using this UI here on write contract.
I want to add something here. Thanks, this was great. It took me some time to find this part in Etherscan early on. Just if you want to use the write contract from here, like please make sure you know what you're doing, because like even here, like the decimals, there's something that you need to know. Like there's another, if you go on read contract, there's also another way to see how many decimals that token has. Like it's mostly it's 18, USDT has like 6, so it's kind of different. And another thing, it gets to a bit like technical, but I really love this feature. If you click on code again, yeah, so here on the more options or like IDE, so there's like these really cool. So a lot of people are aware of Remix or even VS Code, but when you click on that, it opens like a VS Code, like especially like this is a really simple contract, but when you have these contracts that have like multiple source code, it basically handles that for you and shows you the whole source code of that smart contract, which for a lot of people, like I know that some of our audience are like interested in like code auditing or like reading code. This would be really useful to figure out how this token works, what other libraries they're using. If they see a new project, they want to just see how it works, just go deep, like everything's out there and you can start looking into that. And I feel like even for more options, you had like some other stuff. I don't remember exactly what was in the more options on the right side. Okay, right.
Right. So there's also one really cool feature that I use it on a daily, right? Because of my content writing needs. I'm not like super I can't read smart contract code super well. So this tool, Code Reader, actually helps me quite a lot. So let me show you. But first, you actually do need an OpenAI API key, right? To actually play around with this Code Reader, just so you know. So when you click it, the contract address for this token, okay, is actually auto-populated. So you can actually click on load, then it will have been loaded the contract source code over here. Yeah. So let's say you can just ask, what does this smart contract do on a high level? Then you'll need to give it some time. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. Right, so then you can read like, okay, this token contract is part of the ERC20 standard. It's a Tether token, blah, blah, blah. Then you can also maybe use this to help with your sanity checks, right? So let's say, what are some security considerations of this contract? Because sometimes when you stumble upon a new contract or a new token that you think, okay, let's ape into it, or meaning just buy that token without thinking about the consequences, right? So then you can actually use this to ask the code reader, hey, is there something that I should take note of before I interact with this contract? So it will give you a list, right? Then you can read through it. Some are critical, some maybe not, but please bear in mind, all these answers are to be taken like for informational purposes, because after all, it's still AI generated answers, and these answers are all coming from OpenAI. We are just feeding, let's say, the source code and the contract address to OpenAI, and we are asking them this question.
I think what's really interesting is that there are all these like very common things that people would do, but you've kind of built it into the UI. So rather than like, manually copying the address and going like, it's a slightly more error-prone process if you try to do that. What I like is that you've kind of taken the desire path that a lot of people have with how they interact with smart contracts online, and okay, we're just building all these things that you can automatically click in. It loads it for you so that there's less error of like copying and pasting and stuff like that.
Yep. So I think this can also support a much more complex token contracts that have multiple source files. Not sure if I can find that. Let me check. This Uniswap has a complex source code. No. Arbitrum?
I like how Uniswap is like, oh, it's too simple.
Okay, so like Arbitrum, like what Cheyenne has mentioned just now, if you for this contract, you have actually a lot of code, right? Then if you open up the ID, it will look something like this. So you automatically folder it up for you, all that different source code files.
Oh, very
So
nice.
if you're a developer, this will be super useful for you. And for code reader wise, let's go to code reader. Okay, so before you continue, you should read all these items, and you click understand. So it will also display all these source files over here. Then you can pick which source files in particular that you want to understand in greater depth, right? Or you can choose multiple source files, and you can actually view it here. Or you can also do some modification. Maybe you are a developer trying to develop your own smart contract, and you are, let's say, referencing some code. Then you can just do some, let's say, some modification, and then you can straight away ask the code reader, like, hey, does this make sense? Does this function work or whatnot?
One thing I really like about this feature, like I did not know about this feature till like now. Like as they say, I was 37 years old when I learned about this. Is that how AI is like integrated into like everyday tool, and this is like a really good use of like how AI should be used. And it's not like replacing anyone's job; it's just adding a feature to everyone that can use and learn more about the tech they're interacting with. And I love this feature. Thanks for showing me.
Yep. So what else should we cover?
Dustin, what else is on your list of what you wanted to look at? I know we've got this.
One thing we can do is like, let's say I want to send a transaction. I'm not in a rush. How can I find the gas fees, some other
Right.
good time to like use it, more information on the gas.
Yeah, this is
Yep.
a super important, helpful thing to understand how to do in terms of sending transactions, to be able to decide when you're going to send them based on how expensive the gas is.
All right. So before that, maybe not sure if I'm able to find some ridiculously high paying transactions. Probably not. But sometimes during bull markets when the network is super congested, and you will actually end up paying, let's say, more than $100 in transaction fee. If you're not careful, like if you're not aware, you will end up paying like, let's say, 3 digits in transaction fee. But with Etherscan, you can actually go to the top area here, which is our gas tracker page. We can actually see what is the current projected gas fee, which is how much you will be paying if you are to send a transaction at this moment in time, right? So right here on this page, you can actually see for a normal transfer, let's say if I'm sending Ether to Dustin, right? If I'm sending Ether to Dustin, the transaction fee will cost around $2 at most. And for other actions, let's say if I'm doing a swap on Uniswap, it will cost me maybe $33 at current gas price. And there's a lot of other transaction actions that you can actually refer to. Here's more list. So let's say a USDT transfer will cost me around $5. Let's say if I'm swapping on Balancer, it will cost me somewhere around $20. Yeah. So if I am someone that is looking to do a transaction on chain, right? And it's not very urgent. So I can actually pick a time, right? I can actually look at this gas price heat map, and we will actually pick a time where it's actually less congested, right? So we can see that on later days in UTC time, right? On later days, the later hours in the day is actually around 51 Gui, but let's say earlier hours in the day, it costs around less than 20 Gui. So that is when I can make my transaction. But sometimes also you will, if you think that it's quite troublesome to keep coming back to this page, right? Let's say if you are maybe browsing Twitter, let's say you're browsing Twitter, and then then something's on your mind that, okay, I want to do the transaction, but I don't know how much is the gas, then I have to constantly coming back to Etherscan. So that will probably impact my productivity, right? So then we also have this gas extension. So if you click on this page right here, you can actually use our gas extension, which if you have not already noticed, right on top here, not sure if you can see it, there's this little
Yeah, we can. That's so
Etherscan
cool.
extension, right, that can actually give you an overview of the current block and the current gas price. And if you go into settings, you enable the batch notification, then it will actually show up the current gas price. So that means you can actually do most of your stuff. Maybe I'm browsing, I'm coding up here. Then when I just, glance over this gas extension and see that, okay, it's not lower than 20 Gui yet. So I don't do any transactions. So then I can continue doing my stuff without, switching back to this page to check the gas.
Okay, thank you. I think we don't have that much time, but like one last thing I want to show is like on the node tracker, which is like still on the more option, and that's because like we talked about like this diversity, node diversity before, decentral network, how like these nodes work, and I feel like this would be pretty interesting place for people to like click around and find more about how Ethereum network is like working right now.
Yeah, so this page actually shows you where most of the nodes are actually running. And then at this map here, it will show you what is the concentration of the nodes that is currently being run. So if you can see here, most of it is concentrated in the US. And then over here, we have more in Germany. And then where is this? South Korea. Yeah. And then there's this client types. There's Get, Aragon, Nethermind. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are like the breakdown of the versions and everything around that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know
Okay.
that this existed. This is pretty cool
Yeah.
to be able to see where the nodes are in the world and who has the most, and yeah.
So there are websites like, Node Tracker or somebody that like specifically work on this, but I really like the whole Etherscan, this package of like all these tools and information being in one place.
Yeah,
This is actually the most resolution I've seen with regards to OSs. It's got like all the different flavors of OSs there. I was wondering as well if you could just roughly cover the stuff under more services. You've got like token approvals, verified signature, and block scan chat. I thought those were three features that were quite interesting.
Right, so I'll just do a quick run through of these services. So under more in the menu, token approvals, so I can actually check what tokens that I have actually granted permission to other smart contracts to actually transfer it on my behalf, right? So that is the concept. So if I were to go to maybe, let me pick one. Let me look at one address. Then, okay, this address is quite clean, but I know whose address is not very clean. Let me go ahead and check Vitalik's address. So if I search for his address, yeah, I'm actually searching his ENS name, right? And it will automatically resolve to his address. So it will actually show that he has over 320,000 at risk. So that means he has actually approved, let's say for example, right? For example, he has actually approved token messenger contract to spend USDC on his behalf, right? And he has also approved this char token contract to spend DAI token on his behalf. So his his allowances is this much. Yeah, so usually if you have like excessive allowances that you know that you don't intend to use, like for example, you have unlimited Hemio token approval approved, right? And maybe if that particular smart contract is malicious or it is compromised, then a malicious actor would actually spend this token via this compromised smart contract and steal all your tokens. So if you don't want that to happen, then you can just simply connect your wallet, right? And then click on the revoke button. You have to send a transaction and you will have to pay some gas fee for it. Okay, so other than token approvals, we have this block scan. Is it block scan chat that you're asking?
Yeah, I think basically block scan chat is a way of like sending messages to people by their wallet address, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let's say if I want to talk to Vitalik, so let's say if I want to talk to Vitalik, I can just go to his address page, go to this little bubble over here, open Blockscan chat. Let me try to connect my wallet. Okay, so I am now actually in this interface that I can actually send a message and say, hi, VB. And he'll most likely wouldn't reply because he wouldn't check Boston chat. But if you are using this with your friends, then you can actually send it here. Or if let's say you know someone in crypto Twitter that is actually using Boston chat, then you can actually chat with them pseudonymously via Blockscan chat. Yep.
This is
Okay,
incredible.
so yeah, so that time during Istanbul, we also during this Dev Connect Istanbul last year, our team have also like created this itinerary using Blockscan chat that actually allows you to ask, hey, what's the next event that I can go to that is interesting, right? Then this bot in Blockscan Chat will actually tell you that, oh, okay, there's this L2 days happening that you can go to at which venue and at what time.
Oh, nice. So you can run bots
Um,
on BotScan Chat and BotScan Chat as well.
yes, we actually have a SDK, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so you can actually build with the Blockscan Chat SDK. Okay, not very familiar with the dev side of things.
Oh, that's very interesting. So basically, you could maybe have a smart contract. You could have like a smart contract that people can chat to your smart contract and then learn about the smart contract through BlockScan Chat. I mean, theoretically.
Possible, yeah. Okay, is there one last thing that we should go through?
Yeah, I think verified signature is quite useful because I think sometimes, if you're trying to tell people I own this address, but then they want you to prove it, and then they have all these messages like this person, I own this address as a way of proving to people by signing this transaction.
Yeah, so I can do a quick demonstration on this. So let's say I can use this to sign a message. Let's say TY is here. So I can choose to publish or not to publish, right? Then I can also use it to verify my signature. So let's say I want to verify that I am the one that has signed this message. Yeah, so I can actually verify that this address has actually signed with this particular message, and it checks out with the signature hash. So because the concept here is because you are the one that is controlling this your own wallet address, right? And when you're actually signing the message, you are signing it with your own private key that is tied to this wallet address. So that means we can, if we were to verify it, we can actually prove it like via the hash. Yep.
Yep, that's great. Thanks so much for covering it.
Let's refresh and we will see. Oh, should I publish? Let me publish it and go back to see. Yes, TY is here. Awesome.
Don't trust, verify.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, Dustin and TY and Cheyenne had to step out because we are at time, but this was so informative. I feel like I learned a lot that I didn't know. This was great examples of how people can use this pretty much every day. If you use Ethereum, if you're sending transactions or you want to monitor what other people are doing, this is an awesome way to do so. Is there anything else, TY, you wanted to share before we say goodbye?
I would just like to say that this advanced filter tool is a really underrated tool that you can spend a little bit more time on your own, play around with the filter parameters over here. You can adjust what columns that you don't want to see. So let's say I want to filter by all mint transactions, right? Then I can actually see that, okay, if I can also filter down maybe to
Wow.
ERC20.
Wow, I didn't know you could do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So you can actually see all the recent transactions that is related to this particular function mint. So you can see that COTI token is minted. You can see that USDC is minted, and then one of these tokens, and by who, and stuff like that. And you can also, let's say, if you only want to see USDC maybe, right? Then you can filter that up also. Yeah, and how much USDC is actually minted, and you can switch it. Maybe you want to say, okay, maybe you don't want to see the more recent ones. You want to see maybe the beginning of April, on April Fool's Day, you know, how many people are actually minting this. I can also apply the filter. Then we can see a total of 82 transactions found on that day. Yeah, so this is a pretty underrated tool that I use it every day to search for maybe some alpha on chain, if you like. Yep.
Oh, Tiwa,
I
I
think
just also wanted to ask about, when you mouse over on any address, right? And then the yellow highlight comes out, it highlights like everything that is
Right.
exactly the same. And that's really good because sometimes people have addresses that are fake where they have the first characters and the last characters look the same. So this is one way to tell as well that the address is a duplicate if it's all highlighted in yellow.
Yes, that's right.
that is
That's
such
absolutely right.
a good point, Dustin. Yeah.
All right, I think that's all from my side.
This was so informative, TY. Thank you so much. It's always fun when people who use Ethereum every day, and like Dustin and Cheyenne that know so much about it, and then you come on here and you're like, oh, there's this filtering, and it's like, there's all of these new things that we didn't know existed. So I feel better informed now on how to do advanced searching through Etherscan for different transactions. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. Dustin, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, it was great. It was great to just see so many different features behind it. Like, I use Etherscan a lot, but even then I learned a few new things on this, just the new features and the advanced filtering that you're showing us. And even when you went into the blocks as well, that was interesting.
Hmm.
It's awesome. Thank you, TY. We so appreciate your time, and everyone watching, if you've got questions, you can put them in the comments on YouTube or on Twitter, and we can get back to you about it. But I feel way more informed now and ready to go out and do more with Ethereum. So TY, we appreciate you being here today. And
Yes, thanks for having me, everyone.
okay, well, we will see you all next time. So thank you.
Thanks, DY.
Bye.
Bye.